I still remember the strange envelope that arrived 3 days before my 12th birthday. It was early morning, and the sky outside my window was still a dull gray when I found it lying at our doorstep. A pale blue envelope with my name written in perfect cursive. No return address, no stamp, just my name, Elliot. My parents assumed it was from a friend at school. Maybe someone trying to be mysterious, but there was something off about it. The paper inside was thick, yellowed around the edges, as if it had been waiting for years to be opened. The message was short. You're invited to a birthday celebration, just for you. Saturday, 7 p.m., Hollow Creek Manor. I had never heard of that place before. I checked Google Maps, and to my surprise, it did exist. Barely. A half-faded pin dropped at the edge of town, surrounded by woods. My parents told me absolutely not. They had never heard of it, and they didn't trust anything that sounded like it belonged in a ghost story. But something about the card felt personal. The handwriting, the tone. It didn't feel like a prank. It felt meant for me. And the strangest part? My birthday was on Saturday. Exactly 7 p.m. would have been the time my parents had planned to cut the cake at home. I didn't tell them this, but I couldn't stop thinking about it all week. Every night before I went to sleep, I would reread the note. I held it under the lamplight and noticed faint patterns on the back, like faded fingerprints or water damage, forming the shape of balloons and streamers. Was it just my imagination? I didn't get a lot of attention growing up. Not because my parents didn't love me, but they were always busy. Dad worked 2 jobs, and Mom took night shifts at the hospital. Birthdays were usually just dinner and a store-bought cake. Nothing special. But this invitation felt magical. Like someone out there knew I wanted more. I didn't care if it was a joke. I wanted to believe it was real. Saturday came quickly. I hid the invitation in my backpack, told my parents I was going to my friend Danny's house for a sleepover, and took my bike instead. The road to Hollow Creek Manor wasn't even paved. The GPS gave up halfway through the forest trail, and I had to rely on the sun's direction to keep going. It was colder than I expected, the trees growing denser and casting long shadows that made it feel much later than it was. And then I saw it. The manor. It stood behind a rusted gate, overgrown with ivy, the paint peeling off the walls like old scabs. It looked abandoned. The kind of place teenagers dared each other to visit on Halloween. And yet, hanging from the porch was a string of faded balloons barely swaying in the wind. I leaned my bike against a tree and stepped through the gate. Each step felt heavier than the last. As I reached the front door, it creaked open by itself. No one was there. Inside, the air smelled like dust and something sweet, like frosting that had been sitting out for too long. The chandelier above flickered as if it had just been turned on. There were decorations. Streamers hung limply from the ceiling, and in the center of the living room was a table. On it sat a birthday cake with 12 candles, already lit. I whispered, "Hello?" No answer. Then I heard it. Faint, slow clapping from the room at the end of the hall, and a voice whispering my name, not loudly, not angrily, just enough to make my heart freeze in my chest. Elliot. To this day, I don't know why I stepped further inside. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was loneliness. Or maybe the house had already chosen me the moment I opened that envelope. The moment I crossed the threshold, the front door slammed shut behind me with a deafening thud. I spun around, heart racing, and grabbed the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if the house had swallowed me whole. I pressed my ear to the door, hoping to hear some sound from the outside world, cars, birds, the wind. But there was nothing, just silence. I turned back toward the hallway, and that's when I noticed the candles on the cake were still burning steadily. Not a single flicker, as if no breeze dared touch them. The cake looked homemade, but aged. The white frosting had crusted over, and the writing on top, "Happy Birthday, Elliot," looked like it had been written decades ago. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Someone had made this cake. Someone had been waiting. I called out again, louder this time. "Hello? Is anyone here?" No answer. Just the slow creaking of the house settling into itself, like it was stretching after a long sleep. As I moved down the hallway, I noticed something strange. Every few feet, there were framed photographs lining the walls. Birthday parties from what looked like the 1960s or 70s. Faded children smiling beside cakes, surrounded by balloons. But as I looked closer, something felt wrong. In each picture, the birthday child looked eerily similar. Same eyes, same expression, same slight tilt of the head. And in every photo, they were wearing the exact same outfit. A striped shirt and dark jeans. Just like me. My footsteps echoed on the dusty wooden floor as I passed by the living room. I peeked inside. Torn gift wrap lay scattered across the floor, along with old toys, wind-up cars, porcelain dolls, a jack-in-the-box lying on its side with the lid open. The whole place felt frozen in time, like someone had left a party halfway through and never returned. The clock on the wall was stuck at exactly 7:12. I tapped the glass. It didn't move. There was a mirror on the far side of the room, slightly cracked. I glanced into it and froze. My reflection didn't move with me. I turned my head slightly to the left. My reflection stayed still, staring back with a blank expression. I stumbled back, heart hammering in my chest. The lights flickered, and for a moment, I thought I saw someone behind me in the reflection. A shadow, small, childlike, standing just beyond the hallway, staring at me. But when I turned, no one was there. I wanted to leave. I should have left. But something about the hallway ahead pulled at me. It narrowed as I moved deeper, and the wallpaper began to peel away, revealing old wood beneath. I passed a room on the right and peeked in. Inside was a long dining table, covered in dusty plates and melted candles. Chairs were pulled out, as if people had been sitting there recently. And at the head of the table sat a figure. It was a child. He was motionless back to me, his head slightly tilted. I couldn't see his face, but he was wearing the same striped shirt as the kid in the photos. I took a cautious step inside. The air felt thicker here, heavier. As I approached, I noticed that the boy was too still, like a mannequin. His skin had a waxy yellow tone. And then I saw his hands. They were cracked porcelain. I backed out of the room, slowly, my breath quick and shallow. The hallway continued, and at the end was a door, slightly ajar, warm light pouring out from beneath it. I pushed it open with trembling fingers. It was a bedroom. Toys were neatly arranged on shelves. A music box was playing a soft, broken lullaby, and the bed in the center was perfectly made. On the nightstand was a small cake. Another one. This one had only one candle. And beside it, a photo frame with my face in it. Not a photo I recognized. I was smiling, but it wasn't a smile I remembered giving. Behind me in the photo, barely visible, was the same house. I reached for it, and as my fingers touched the frame, the music box stopped, and the whispers began again. Elliot, you made it back. Back? I turned to leave, but the door had vanished. It wasn't closed. It simply wasn't there anymore. Just solid wall with peeling wallpaper and the faint outline of a doorway that once was. Suddenly, I wasn't sure if I had entered this house today, or if I had been here before. And as the light bulb above flickered once more, I realized I wasn't alone in the room. There were eyes in the darkness, watching, waiting. The room grew colder with each passing second. I stood frozen, staring into the shadows where I felt the eyes watching me. My hands trembled, my breath shallow, as the last flickers of the overhead bulb dimmed into a soft orange glow. Then I heard it again. Footsteps, light, deliberate, pacing around the edge of the room. "Who's there?" I asked, my voice cracking. No reply, just the low hum of the walls. Breathing. Then a whisper, barely audible, seeped into my ear like cold smoke. "You were always meant to return." Return? What did that mean? My head spun with confusion. I looked around the room again, trying to find something, anything, that could explain this nightmare. I rushed to the photo frame and flipped it over. Nothing. But beneath it, tucked under the nightstand drawer, I found a piece of folded paper. Old, brittle. It crumbled slightly at the edges as I opened it. It was a list. Names, dozens of them. All written in the same elegant cursive as my invitation. Next to each name was a date, and beside that, a word, forgotten. At the very bottom of the list was my name, Elliot Westwood. April 12th, 7 p.m., forgotten. The room tilted slightly, like the house was leaning in. I suddenly felt like I was falling, even though my feet were still on the ground. My vision blurred and I saw flashes. Children in striped shirts, laughing, then screaming. Balloons bursting like gunshots. A cake melting into blood. Then came the voice again. Louder, clearer. A child's voice. "Do you remember now?" I spun around. A boy stood there, same age as me, same striped shirt, but hollow eyes. His skin was pale, almost translucent, and he smiled with a sadness that chilled me to the bone. "You came here once, a long time ago," he said softly. "You never left, not really." "No," I muttered, shaking my head. "That's not true. I've never been here before." He stepped closer. "That's what they all say, until the house helps them remember." I stumbled backward, knocking into the bed. "What do you mean?" He gestured to the window. I hadn't noticed it before. It was small, covered in dust and grime. I wiped it with my sleeve and looked outside. And my heart stopped. The woods. They were the same. But the bike I had ridden here? Rusted, buried in leaves, like it had been lying there for years. I gasped and backed away. No. No. I just got here. Today. This isn't possible." "You were forgotten, Elliot," the boy said quietly. "Your parents, they stopped looking. You were lost. And when the world forgets you, this house remembers." Tears welled in my eyes. "I'm not forgotten. I just came here. But then the boy stepped aside and pointed to the mirror on the wall. "Then why don't you cast a reflection?" I turned slowly and saw nothing. No me, just the room, empty. I screamed, stumbled out of the room, down the hallway past the photos that now showed blank faces. Empty-eyed children staring into nothing. The birthday cake on the table had crumbled into dust. The candles had burned out. I reached the front door again, now slightly ajar. I yanked it open, desperate for air, for sunlight, for freedom. But outside, it wasn't day anymore. It was night, not just night, frozen midnight. A full moon hung impossibly still in the sky. And the woods, they were no longer woods, just an endless blackness stretching in every direction. And then I saw them, children, dozens, standing silently among the trees, all in striped shirts, all with hollow eyes, watching me. We never left, the boy's voice whispered behind me. And now, neither will you. The door slammed shut behind me again, and this time it locked without sound. And I remembered. I had come here once. I had followed the invitation. I had wanted to feel special. And in return, I was forgotten by the world and remembered only by the house. Now I wait, like the others, for the next child, the next birthday, the next invitation. You,